Very well. Now we continue. Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 108C, page 385. We've been talking about, through the medium of symbolism, the resurrection of the entombed consciousness and its breaking forth into light and visibility. Visible to man, let's say, we put it this way, breaking forth into light and visibility. So that in fact the obvious revelations of the senses include the revelation of the resurrected one, and we are told that of the Christ every eye shall see him when he returns again. And this is a Taurian factor. It has to do with the common sense and common vision, the vision of the senses, because the Christ will be embodied in a physical vehicle of his own making, the Maya Varupa, and every eye shall see that vehicle, though not every eye shall recognize who the great Lord is. Because in a way he comes for his own, for those who believe in him and have proven his existence. It goes on to say here that sex is then seen to be in truth only the relation of the lower nature to the higher self. And in this sense then, Venus then does rule sex, because Venus controls this relation to the higher self, the relation between the higher self and the lower self. So then Venus then controls. But Venus is not involved so much with lower sex as Mars is. Mars, the ruler of the animal kingdom, Mars more involved in the animal aspect of sex. Sex is then seen to be in truth only the relation of the lower nature to the higher self. It is then lifted up into the light of day, and of course DK is speaking on many levels. Scorpionic light is the light of day. The 12 different kinds of zodiacal light, and scorpionic light is the light of day, and Scorpio is the one, or in Scorpio, Hercules knelt to lift the Hydra into the light of day. And the light of day is really the intuition. So light of day is, in this context, the intuition. So the lower nature is lifted up into the light of day in order that man may reach complete union with divinity, and this is really beginning BGN on the Buddhic plane. So a higher form of sex is occurring on the Buddhic plane. At the 4th degree, where the Buddhic plane is so prominent, the whole problem of sex is resolved in a higher way, and presumably a way that is not involving the animal functions. Mars, it seems, does not rise to the Buddhic plane, being a planet of discord and division, whereas the Buddhic plane is the plane of union and harmony. Man discovers that sex, which has hitherto been a purely physical function, carried on sometimes under the impulse of love, but certainly not always, is elevated into its rightful place as the divine marriage. And this involving the human and Deva kingdoms, because it is at that point that there is a harmonization and a merging of the human and Deva kingdoms, that is on the Buddhic plane, whereas on the monadic plane there is a complete identification of the two, something more difficult to understand. Man discovers that sex, which has hitherto been a purely physical function carried on sometimes under the impulse of love, but we can certainly see in today's world, how divorced sex may be from love, is elevated to its rightful and more final place as the divine marriage. Buddhi is a plane of marriage. From that perspective, you do wonder whether Libra, usually associated with the atmic plane, and Venus, usually associated with the higher mind, do not have their Buddhic functions. I think they do. There's a connection of Libra with the dragon. The dragon is a great source of Buddhi. And Venus is a Buddhically polarized planet, and its focus on the cosmic astral plane is on the Buddhic subplane, or increasingly on the Buddhic subplane of the cosmic astral plane. So Buddhi is prevailing on Venus, and then as a result, the Libran and the Libran and the Venusian factors carry also this quality of Buddhi. They are the two factors, a sign and a planet, having most to do with marriage. So sex is elevated to its rightful place as the divine marriage, carried out and consummated upon the levels of soul awareness. And what do we mean by soul? Well, it can be the higher mental plane or the planes of the spiritual triad. It is this great truth which lies beyond the sordid story of sex expression, of sex magic, and the distortions of modern tantric magic. So these are all the negative expressions of sex. And transcendence is possible. And it would be this type of realization that the Masters and the Christ possess when they think of the relation between positive and negative having far transcended the animal phase, though DK says that on occasion and for purposes of service and demonstration, even the Masters themselves may marry and engage in the normal, more material sexual relation. So it is this great truth which lies beyond the sordid story of sex expression, of sex magic, which is, I suppose, using the negative, the energy of sex to achieve certain lower desires, and the tantric magic which seems to be connected again with the misuse of sexual power and the sustainment of pleasure, perhaps with no further objective. Though some of the tantricists say it's all about divine union, DK does seem to say that in this way union and liberation will not be achieved. He actually wrote that. I'm trying to find the exact words. Humanity has stepped down the symbolism, and in its thoughts debased sex to an animal function, and failed to lift it up into the realm of symbolic mystery. That is a very interesting statement, and I would say here related to the Buddhic plane, because this is a plane toward which symbolism tends. The symbol is a great container of intuition, and the Buddhic plane, especially on its fourth level, is the plane of intuition. So there is a connection between the symbol and the Buddhic plane via the intuition. The pondering of symbols is one of the best ways of cultivating Buddhic consciousness, and it evokes the intuition which reveals the true nature of the higher worlds. But we have chosen the Martian approach to sex. As I say, Mars rules the third kingdom, the animal kingdom, and it also rules the physical body and the animal sex instinct particularly. So there has been a debasing of the higher realization of union. I suppose there is a necessary animal function here if the human race through the sacral center is to be perpetuated, but there has come about a type of fixation of human consciousness upon this function, augmented still because the sacral center is being stimulated by the empowerment of Uranus in relation to Aquarius and the seventh ray related to the sacral center. So this fixation is a great problem in the human race today, and somewhere, I think in Esoteric Psychology 1, DK says that even the masters do not know where it will end. Men have sought through physical expression to produce the inner fusion and harmony which they crave, and this cannot be done. Maybe this is the very sentence that I was looking for. I begin to think so. Let's see here. Right, I want to make that a bit bigger. This cannot be done. They have sought through physical expression to produce the inner fusion and harmony, which are Buddhic factors, are they not? Okay, right? These are Buddhic factors related to the Buddhic plane, inner fusion and harmony. And of course, because man is a unitive being and is really meant to be expressing upon the Buddhic plane, as we see that the expressive domain of the fourth creative hierarchy is the Buddhic plane, man naturally craves inner fusion and harmony. But the consciousness has been so debased that the true means of attaining the inner fusion and harmony has been forgotten, if it was ever known, and instead the lower animal reflection is the preferred means of so many to try to achieve this. Sex is but the symbol. Notice he's talking about sex here in the Taurus chapter. The sign Taurus, along with Scorpio and Libra, are the major signs of sex. Sex is but the symbol of an inner duality which must be itself transcended and wrought into unity. There will be, the sexes were divided, but there will be a return to hermaphroditism. There will be a return, but whether this will be a literal physical return or more return in terms of consciousness remains to be seen. It's difficult to say what types of forms will appear during the fifth round, when presumably there should be some reamalgamation of the sexes. The division of the sexes has occurred in this fourth round. Maybe we will even be able to see, right on our particular globe and in this Earth chain, some of the return to a conscious hermaphroditism. There was certainly an unconscious hermaphroditism in the first and second root races, and especially in the early part of the third root race before the division of the sexes. It is not transcended by physical means or rituals, so this is DK talking about the limitations of the distortions of tantric magic. Here he speaks of the limitations of the distortions of tantric magic. So there are a number of people who believe that by these physical means the inner union can be achieved, but DK tells us that this transcendence of the outer duality in favor of the inner duality can only occur in consciousness. Some of the Tantricists also believe that they are involving consciousness along with the physical tantric methods. This has yet to be clarified, but DK is basically telling us it cannot be done by physical means alone. The great factor of evolution proceeds through progressive reunions and re-amalgamations. There was a great division through the emanative process, and reoriented desire is attempting to refuse. You can see the implications of that word, but again, fuse that which has been divided by the process of differentiation. But the methods of rejoining that which has been divided, it's a very Icean method, isn't it? I mean, Isis being Sirius, we can understand how much Sirius is, with his sponsorship of initiation, is involved in this re-amalgamation, refusing, rejoining process. We can see how much Sirius is involved in this and why initiation is a process which creates ever greater realization of wholeness, and not fragmentation, just the opposite, the fusing of the many into one, or the refusing of the many into one. So it is the transcendence in consciousness. This is what we are. We are trying to transcend the pairs of opposites in consciousness, and we should not be using physical means which correlate more with the animal nature and with the methods of the third aspect of divinity. The esoteric ruler of Taurus is Vulcan, the forger of metals, and we might call this the shaper of metals, the one who works in the densest, most concrete expression of the natural world from the human angle. Notice how DK is qualifying this, because there are levels which are even more dense than the mineral level. Just the way we can atmospheres of greater attenuation can, as it were, be passed through by states of greater condensation, greater precipitation. So it's possible that these very lowest levels of, let us call it the eighth sphere in a way, can be present without our perception. We can pass right through them, and the demonstrations of that level can pass right through us. So there's an interpenetration of the various levels. The human understanding does not take into consideration this still denser eighth level. Is probably one of the mysteries with which we have not yet to deal, because we wouldn't know what we're dealing with or how to handle it. But the masters and the higher intelligences know about this still more condensed sphere. So Vulcan is the forger of metals, the one who works in the mineral kingdom, the densest and most concrete expression of the natural world from the human angle. He is the one who goes down into the depths. And of course, the symbol we use for Vulcan in a way is the downward pointing arrow. Say the downward pointing arrow. So that symbolizes the ability to go down into the depths to find the material, let's just say, in the quarries of life, upon which to expend his innate art. Oh, DK says so much. And, we just read over it. This tells us, I think, this tells us of the still deeper fourth ray of Vulcan, the innate art, because innate means deeply recessed, deeply within the center of the being, a part of his inner nature. So the fourth ray monad of Vulcan, which eventually could give way to a second ray major monad, seems to be suggested. So there is the ability of this first ray of Vulcan to penetrate into the dense matter and to extract it and work upon it in a strenuous manner. But it is a deeper artistic impulse in line with the beauty of the plan related to Taurus, which guides Vulcan in his working upon this dense substance. I think a lot of these people who deal with metal sculpture, they must be very Vulcanian in their nature. And it would be interesting to see whether once Vulcan is discovered, they have a pronounced Vulcan, or whether Taurus is prominent for them, or certainly one of the earth signs in which Vulcan is involved. Really, Vulcan is involved in all the earth signs, actually, one way or another. So there is a revelation here of the deeper nature of Vulcan. He is the one who goes down into the depths to find the material, looking for ore, you might say. Whoop. I want to make this happen in red. Looking for ore, upon which to expend his innate art. Of course, the ore has to be refined and the material to be worked upon has to be extracted. This is all part of the purification process. Vulcan is not meant to expend his innate art upon factors which are impure, substances which are impure, and which would never hold the intended shape. And to fashion that which is beautiful and useful. Notice the utilitarian part of Vulcan. The fourth ray is here involved in the beautiful, although the second ray is also a ray of the beautiful, and the second ray is related to Vulcan, which is related to the heart of the sun, interestingly, and useful, utilitarian. So we have the fifth and the seventh ray involved as well. And I've often thought that the rhythm of Vulcan, the hammering, the rhythmic hammering, suggests some concrete expression of the first ray. The seventh ray is a concrete expression of the first ray. Beautiful and useful. One sees in a way the blend of the fourth ray and the fifth ray, seventh ray. The age of Vulcan is coming, and more we are going to find the creation of those forms which will facilitate man's evolution on the earth through their beauty and through their real usefulness. Technology gives us the useful, that which is useful. Vulcan is, therefore, that which stands for the soul, the individual inner spiritual man. And I want to add here, with is very strong, and this is the Vulcanian word, grip. The fist, the grip. The hands clenched, the body braced, the mind alert. This is a Vulcanian type of stance that is given in the integration formula of the first ray. Prepare the form, let the eyes look forward, not on either side. Let the ears be closed to all the outer voices, and the hands clenched, the body braced, and mind alert. Okay. So, Vulcan is, therefore, that which stands for the soul, the grip of the soul, the power of the soul to force substance into the proper shape. But the substance forced into the proper shape must be purified substance. Otherwise, it will never hold the intended form. You see how the analogy works there? You can't take impure metal or crude ore and expend the art of the blacksmith upon it. It has to be the truly purified ore that will actually hold the shape that Vulcan seeks to impose. Vulcan is a first-rate planet. It is imposing a pattern upon that which will hold the pattern. The soul could begin trying to impose its patterned will upon an unpurified personality, but the form would never hold because of the impurities. So we have a lot of work to do to make sure that we get rid of these weaknesses and impurities in the lower system so that the imposed pattern of the soul will hold. So Vulcan is the soul, the individual inner spiritual man. In his activity, we find the key to the soul's task upon the eternal round of the wheel of life. Well, one way of describing this is to make sure that the personality shapes up. And all of this Virgoan getting into shape and so forth is somewhat Vulcanian in nature, not just the Martian factor of exercise, but the holding of the producing of the proper form and the sustaining of that form according to an active will. That's behind a lot of what we do with our exercise. You will remember how Hercules upon the fixed cross had to fashion his own weapons before he succeeded in the struggle. Sometimes he was given a weapon by an attentive deity, but other times he had to fashion his weapon. And at first those weapons were crude, like the club that he formed. But later the weapons became more refined and sophisticated. I'm thinking that in some of the earlier degrees, one has to demonstrate what is called the work of the hands. And this is coming, let us say, before the work of the mind. So the hands have to be able, in the outer world, to fashion something. This word fashion is so Vulcanian. I suppose maybe when you combine it with Venus, we can have any type of fashion. But anyway, a Vulcanian word to create a form which will hold. And I'm thinking about standing waves at this moment in their relation to archetypes and how Vulcan may be involved in sustaining that type of stable vibration which creates a form in a way, and which form eventually must be imposed upon the mosaic matter of the lower worlds. So Hercules upon the fixed cross had to fashion his own weapons before he succeeded in the struggle. This is in reality a reference to the art of Vulcan. Notice how the word art is always included, and its fourth-ray nature. This is in reality a reference to the art of Vulcan. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Maybe some editor will take that out. No time to do it right now. This is in reality a reference to the art of Vulcan, who rules the inner man and guides his fashioning, the fashioning of the inner man and of the outer man, fashioning of the subtle nature of man and also the outer nature, but the building of the causal body must also involve Vulcan, I would think. So the fashioning and guides his fashioning. But let's just say that when we're talking about it is the inner man who is doing the fashioning, and it is Vulcan who is guiding the fashioning that he is doing. This is working, of course, it's working out on the outer level in the etheric nature to which Vulcan is much allied, and also on the dense physical level, but there are other aspects of the man that need to be fashioned as well. And the causal body must hold a particular form. Let's just put it like this, that Vulcan is involved in the holding of form, the sustaining of shape. So Vulcan seems to be involved in fashioning the outer man, the inner man, and even the causal body itself, which is the vehicle, one of the vehicles of the inner man. In other words, Vulcan involved in the manifestation of the archetype. That's what we're looking for. There are inner forms, inner patterns, which have to take shape upon the outer plane and upon other outer planes. Even the mental plane is an outer plane from a certain perspective, certainly the astral plane is. Certain forms have to take shape. So wherever forms have to take shape, Vulcan is involved. Yeah. Okay. Vulcan also rules nations at a certain stage of embryonic soul expression. Perhaps we're not talking about, this is not an advanced stage that he is speaking about here. Such as the present, and governs their activities, fashioning the instruments of war, when war and conflict are the only means whereby liberation can come, though woe betide those through whom wars come. He is repeating here, Master DK is repeating an idea found in the Bible. It needs must be that offense must come, but woe unto those through whom offense cometh. It's so interesting, you know, the Soviet Union had as its symbol the hammer and the sickle. This is such a combination of Vulcan and Saturn, isn't it? Ruling earth signs and representing the metallic instruments which beat matter into submission. We're dealing with the masses here, the mass consciousness, and perhaps it involved bringing the mass consciousness into a different type of condition. Here in Finland, we have one of the founding sort of Davic beings is called Ilmarinen. He is the blacksmith. And in Helsinki, there is a picture of 3 male figures who are expending the blacksmith's art upon the metal. We have also the idea of beating the spears or beating the weapons into plows. The idea of using Vulcan to transform the instruments of war into the instruments of productivity. It is a transition from a more Martian Vulcanian approach to a Venusian Vulcanian approach, beating the swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. So wherever there is a reshaping in the lower worlds, according to soul intention, Vulcan will be involved. But individualization or individuality is a certain stage of soul expression, and there are a number of countries that are reaching the individual stage where they are asserting themselves. They assert themselves through the instruments of war, whether the war is justified in some cases or not in many cases. The whole armaments industry that Germany succeeded in concealing from the world for a long period of time and then revealed came in under Vulcan. There was such a strong production of armaments in World War I and World War II. Vulcan was tremendously involved. DK talks about the death which occurred within the human kingdom as a result of the mineral kingdom, and Vulcan is involved in that. So we're only talking about the stage of individual expression. The soul is embryonic in this, and there is not a real consideration for the other nations. Nation building also is a very Vulcanian idea, to set in certain form the state and status of a nation, its effective condition. So this book was written in the 30s when there was a tremendous armaments industry. There is now as well, and it's become so advanced that probably those of us who are on the outside, relatively speaking, would be shocked to see what types of weapons are being created under the Vulcanian impulse. Vulcan then takes hold. This is the idea of the grip. Since the Middle Ages has brought to the mineral kingdom the depths from which supply must come under human control. Probably there's a definite cycle there of when Vulcan took over, bringing the mineral kingdom into compliance with the will of the human kingdom. The mineral kingdom was brought into compliance with the will of the human kingdom. And of course, let us say the fifth ray helped here, because through the understanding of matter via the fifth ray, the shaping and the compelling of matter into certain forms could take place. Middle Ages, what was the cycle that made this possible? It had to begin occurring, this fashioning of armor, in the especially in the Middle Ages, full body armor. It had existed for a long time, of course, thousands of years before, but the idea of full body armor is such a union of Vulcan and Mars. And the idea of the knight in shining armor shows us the blacksmith's art. One can only imagine trying to walk and ride and carry that kind of weight of metal. But we can see also then that Vulcan is involved with protecting the softer form within. So Vulcan then takes hold. And since the Middle Ages has brought the mineral kingdom the depths from which supply must come under human control. And there's a first-ray word, right? First-ray word. Control. In the present war, and is this written in the 30s or is it written in the 40s? It's not written earlier. It's not World War I. Vulcan is concerned, along with Venus, in the relation of man to man and of man to the mineral kingdom. The human and social relations are particularly ruled by Venus. The outer relations, which are often warlike through the use of weaponry, are ruled by Vulcan. Venus, the mental energy of humanity, establishes relation between man and man, between nation and nation. So Venus is mental and is responsible for more subjective relationships. Venus responsible for more subjective relationships, while Vulcan establishes the relation between the fourth kingdom and the first. How interesting! We are all meant to become in the fourth kingdom diamond souls. We have the jewel in the lotus. The jewel is to shine forth. The central diamond of the human causal nature is Vulcanian. It's in a way analogously the mineral part of higher man, establishing a connection then with the first kingdom, which is the mineral kingdom. So the soul relations, the mental relations between people are established by Venus, and Vulcan is relating us to the mineral kingdom. Okay, Vulcan relating, that's rotating, relating humanity to the mineral kingdom. Vulcan, as we shall see later, is governed by the first ray. This means, of course, that the first ray is in a way superior to what Vulcan is. The rays are coming from far distant sources, which are much greater than the planet themselves. So when we talk about governing, we can speak of governing from above, but there is also another way in which the idea of rulership means a constraining of a greater energy through a lesser energy. Vulcan, as we shall later see, is governed by the first ray, and the first ray and the first kingdom are definitely bound together. The 7 and the 1 often invert. There's a way of considering the first kingdom in relation to the 7th ray, yes, and the first kingdom in relation to the first ray. This, therefore, brings in the Shambhala force in relation to the mineral kingdom, right? In relation to the mineral kingdom. Shambhala is really the 7th kingdom, the kingdom of solar lives, and those who live in Shambhala are in a way solar lives. Sanat Kumara especially is a solar life. So the Shambhala force has been expended, applied in the Great War, 1914 to 1945. Brings in the Shambhala force, and you consequently have an esoteric triangle of energy: will, i.e. Shambhala, humanity, and the mineral kingdom. So Vulcan is involved in all of these, and Venus especially in relation to humanity. Let us highlight this factor: will, humanity, and the mineral kingdom. Vulcan involved in all, but especially with will and the mineral kingdom. Humanity is presently going through a Vulcanian phase, perhaps, using the mineral kingdom in a new way and being subjected to the will of the soul. And there is, because there is a close connection between Earth and Taurus, there's also going to be a close connection between Earth and Vulcan. And as I said, a number of Vulcanian lotuses are present on the Earth, and I think learning the astral or sentient response, as can be learned apparently much better on Earth than on Vulcan. So these three, will, humanity, and the mineral kingdom, have a very close rapport with each other. And all of this is demonstrating at a time when will is rapidly growing in power due to the shambolic impacts which have been occurring since 1825 in terms of recent history at least. Well, that's a little too big, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's too big. Okay, they have a very close rapport with each other, both from the angle of the plan and from the expression of material selfishness. Now, we saw that Taurus can be a very dangerous sign. We're going to see more soon, because the possibility of the materialization of the life of humanity can occur under Taurus and apparently under Vulcan as well. There is a divine will. It works out in terms of the plan through hierarchy and carried out by humanity. And in this particular age, the Aquarian age, the mineral kingdom will be very important, because Aquarius rules the lowest of the creative hierarchies, which is related certainly to the mineral lives, among others. So the reshaping or the rebuilding of the temple of humanity, of the shrine of human living, can actually work out in material ways as well as in subjective ways, and Vulcan will be involved in that. The redesigning of our world in an outer sense. Vulcan is the planet of the builder, and we've noticed that many Taurian people find themselves in construction and in the building trades. So the plan can work out in material change of a positive nature, but it can also work out in a grasping, acquisitive, material selfishness, which we have seen as the bull rushes forward with pursuing wrathful satisfaction. And I do believe Hitler was a great example of that type of Taurian. Let's call it this: Hitler and the pursuit of what's called wrathful satisfaction. Hence the great use of minerals, iron, especially iron, copper, etc., in the World War II. So some of this had to have been written during the war itself, it seems. This is literally a war in which the mineral kingdom is used against the human. And sometimes a combative relationship between two things that are to be related produces the intensifying of the relationship. In other words, conflict precedes harmony. At least conflict is a type of relationship which, when adjusted, produces harmony. Well, we've seen that the human beings fighting in that war and in subsequent wars undergo death, primarily because of the use of the mineral kingdom through weaponry. Humanity had gone down into the caves, the Virgoan caves, and the depths of concretion, which is represented by Capricorn. So let's put that down. We probably remember it. Capricorn, and had gone down into the caves of Virgo. Virgo is also related to agriculture and the plains, I think, and is ready now for an upward shift or move. This time consciously taken and taken all together. So we can see that Vulcan will be related to elevation also. This is a most difficult situation for the average man to comprehend. It's as if the downward pointing of arrow of Vulcan will be in some way reversed, and related then to the upward pointing arrow of Pluto. But there will be an elevation through vibration. Let's see, an upward shift. I'll call it this. I'll call it elevation through vibration. Because the law of vibration, I think, is ruled primarily by the planet Vulcan, just as the law of cohesion by Jupiter and so forth. So if the vibration increases, if the pitch increases, there will be an upward shift. There will be an elevation, and perhaps because of the technology that was made possible through the discovery of the different elements and their utilization, perhaps through this technology, the upward shift will be facilitated by the right use of the mineral kingdom, and hence involving Vulcan. This is a most difficult situation for the average man to comprehend, but the entire problem of the conscious use of that which exists upon the planet and also its destructive usage is tied together into one most critical situation. Obviously, when this was written, it seems that the war was not over. I don't see how he could write of the war taking place physically if he was writing in the 30s, and yet that's when a great deal of this writing in astrology took place. I think, if you want to know for sure, check with Keith Bailey. He has the dates when these books were actually written, although they were obviously published later. Part of the solution will come along similar lines, and of this the prophecy now coming into the racial awareness that there are those who sleep in the caves of the earth and will arise and bring liberation. This has reference. And of this the prophecy now coming into the racial awareness that those who sleep in the caves of the earth will arise and bring liberation has reference. So the lesser lives, the power of the lesser lives, the atomic energy of these lesser lives will be technologically mastered. I mastered energy, for I am energy itself, the fifth ray. And this mastery will bring liberation. There will be a rising due to the mineral kingdom. But be not too literal in interpretation, for that which is of the earth can also be found in the sky. It's just a question of condensation, isn't it? The sky, of course, can be considered the etheric plane, and Vulcan has rulership over that, and it is a material plane as well. So all that is of the earth is really a precipitation of that which is found in the sky. At least that's one method of interpretation that which has precipitated from the sky, from the subtler planes. No, planes, we'll do it that way. This has to be pondered. There is an uprising going on here, but also a precipitation, and during a magical age, materialization of concretion from a subtle condition, precipitation we call it, will be an art that many master. We can already see the harbinger of this in the stories of magicians who seem to create something out of nothing, but that nothing is not really nothing. It's an etheric condition which, when properly condensed, will create that congestion of elements, of atoms that we call something. Right now, the literal material mind says, oh, there's nothing there, and the occultist says, no, that's the subtle world. There's definitely something there, but it's too subtle for us to detect. So there's an interchange here between the mineral kingdom and the human kingdom, and we are to become living stones, radiant stones. The Vulcanians are fiery stones, but we are to become living stones, and our first ray monad of this planet will help us become so. Well, we are getting to the point where, maybe one more paragraph here, hierarchically, also the ruler is Vulcan. It has to do more with the initiate state of consciousness, conditioning the planet and determining the fact that man is the macrocosm of the microcosm, and that the fourth kingdom fashions or conditions all subhuman kingdoms. So, under the Vulcanian impulse, this fashioning occurs. So we are bringing the lower kingdoms into shape according to the design we conceive, and may that design be in line with that which the planetary logos conceives. Otherwise, we are just not performing any true work, and we are creating ugliness instead of the intended archetypal form. But the power to fashion in the lower kingdoms is conferred by Vulcan. It's the power to compress, to bring things together and compress them into an enduring form. Let's look at it this way, to bring things together and compress them into an enduring form. Of course, we've begun to play God just a bit, and we've begun to clone and probably mix and create forms that were never intended, and we have to be very careful about repeating on a higher turn of the spiral that which the unintelligent spirits accomplished when they undertook the creation of man with disastrous, even monstrous results, which had to be destroyed, wiped away by the great laws, L-A-A-S. When they looked in and found that the creation was not as intended. Excuse me. Well, okay, there's so much here. Every time in passing on and going farther, I realize how much has not been examined as carefully as it might be. When a planet is a hierarchical ruler, it has to do with large groups of beings, with masses of monads, with entire kingdoms and the monads that create those kingdoms. It still remains to be a question whether the monads in the fourth kingdom are essentially different from monads in relation to the subhuman kingdoms, because the subhuman kingdoms are, in a way, part of the fourth kingdom. That's an entirely different question, and actually a difficult one, this relating of creative hierarchies to kingdoms. But okay, for now we will go on, and I think we'll call this the end of Esoteric Astrology Adventure 108C, and page 387. And we'll begin with Esoteric Astrology Adventure 109A, page 387. And I'd like to close with the great invocation here. Which is a fitting conclusion to some of these programs. I don't close that way with every single one, but at least with some of them. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends. There's so much in this book, and it branches out, of course, into all the other books, and all things eventually must be related to each other in meticulous entirety, so that all the patterns, the divine patterns, can be understood immediately, intuitively, and then a way found to work these patterns out into our daily life. So we'll go on in a little while, or when I can, and into Esoteric Astrology Adventure number 109. Until then.